leaving for the coast. In town they met at night and talked about when they would leave. The first to go were usually those who had seen drought before, who knew the horror of retreating at the last hour, with the last goats and the last flour, and the last hardtack burning in their mouths. Others wanted to go, but waited, remembering the long march, the hunger, the drought camps and the cholera, the barren trails where they buried children with their eyes open so they wouldn't get lost on the way to heaven. Others held out angrily, said, "This is mine," and stamped their feet on the packed earth. They were the last to leave and the first to return. They were also the most likely to survive, as if they had the gift of estivation, drying up, slowing, sleeping for days, rising only to take little sips of what they could steal from the wells, like the resurrection plants with stems like rope and black-burnt leaves, blooming again at the first sign of rain. They watched the sky and pinned their hopes on wisps of cloud stretching languidly across the blue. They shuttered windows and covered the wells. They watched neighbors leave and listened to rumors of where the government had set up way stations and where there was disease. They killed the bone-thin zebu cows and then the goats, the animals arching weakly away from the dull blades of the knives. The meat of these last goats was stringy and dry. In silty water the women made stews from the guts and broth from the hoofs and tendons. They left the healthiest ones for the long march. In the hills they searched for the last drinking trees, held their bird-pecked fruit, ate their withered leaves and chewed their tubers until the sweet alkaline juice numbed their mouths. Slowly the great trees began to die, their roots torn up, their leaves scratching at the dust as the wind swirled them away. They watched the sky and pinned their hopes on the empty blue of it. Hadn't they heard stories of rain falling from cloudless skies, last-minute interventions by St. Joseph or St. Barbara? What of thorn ghosts who could stream tassels of water from the bean trees or open fountains from the cracks in the empty riverbeds? They began to leave candles at the crossroads and sprinkle cane wine on the lips of their patron saints. They worshipped in tiny chapels filled with carved wooden feet and heads left long ago to pay for wishes granted. While they waited for answers, they rolled their earthen bowls into blankets and tied them with twine. They piled these along with their children onto carts and backs of donkeys with weak knees and dry mouths. The poorer ones carried their blankets on their backs and their children in their arms. Half-empty gourds of water sloshed about their necks. They watched the sky and finally cursed it, cursed the clouds and the absence of the clouds, the laziness of the clouds, the immoderation of the clouds that refused to leave the coast with its plump women and rich black soil. They rolled their icons of St. Joseph into the blankets alongside the bowls. They recited invocations and slipped the scripts into twig-thin scapulars around their necks. They chewed their last meals slowly, waiting for each dry lump of manioc to dissolve, as if it were the viaticum. They spent their final nights at home. These were restless nights, and every one of them dreamed of the dust storms. This, they said, meant it was time to go, when the dreams turned dry and the clouds stayed away even in the night. They woke the children before dawn and set out while it was still cool. They calculated how far it was to the coast and how much water remained. When they spoke of those hours, they said, "We passed hunger," as if it were a place, an outpost on a lonely road. Other times they said, "Hunger passed through here," as if something alive, a pale-hoofed creature who tore through on bristling haunches, or ambled out of the white forest with a worn suit and a broken face, a monster or a devil. Isabel was 3 when she left, and 4 when she came home, and so her memory was only a child's memory, made of smells and light and the uneven surface of the road. What she remembered was this: the hot taste of the charqui her aunt pushed into her cheek with a dirty thumb when she cried, the difference in the warmth of her mother's body and the radiating heat of the ground, her father's hands, pink-burned and black with the grease of the engine. She remembered the sky, too, and how she hated it with a child's hate. Her father's hands were pink-burned because the engine seized constantly, and the men were too anxious to let the radiator cool.